Hello and welcome to this video on white paper critical reading, the fourth step in cryptocurrency fundamental analysis. So I'm resolute that every step in the process is just as important as the next. That being said, some steps you can skip or minimalize as you get better at this process. This is not one of them. Reading the white paper is mandatory because it's the best, most comprehensive way to gain an understanding of a project and if it deserves your investment. There are almost no universal truths when it comes to cryptocurrency projects, but here's one. Almost everyone has a white paper. The trouble is there's no standard universal structure or best practice when it comes to these documents. Reading the white paper will give you a perspective on the project you might not otherwise have had, and it doesn't have to take long. Most people skip this step or rebuke it as unnecessary, but you're not going to be one of those people. Hopefully by now you have a basic understanding of the project that you're looking at and starting to form an opinion on it. After reading the white paper, you'll be able to solidify both of those. All right, so let's back up. What is a white paper? By the power of example, you should know what it is. It's a written document to better understand the technical project behind an ICO or an established coin. But the white paper isn't restricted to ICOs or the cryptocurrency space. A white paper is a document long used in business. According to Wikipedia, a white paper is an authoritative report or guide that informs readers concisely about a complex issue and presents the issuing body's philosophy on the matter. It is meant to help readers understand an issue, solve a problem, or make a decision. Essentially, it helps readers understand. It's an informational document meant to deliver you the best information without the PR and marketing filter of the promotional content we get to find on the websites, flyers, or advertisements. Now, that's not always the case. As you begin to read through white papers, you'll find that there's a huge diversity in the types out there. Some projects use their white paper as an extension of their marketing, filling it full of marketing jargon and buzzwords. Some are short, some feel like PhD dissertations. Some are painfully shy of details, while others are excruciating in their level of detail. Lots of times these white papers are long and full of technical lingo. If you ever take the time to read an entire white paper, oftentimes you'll feel like you ought to get a gold medal for your efforts. Sure, bragging rights are great, but there are other more important reasons for taking the time to do this. What you'll learn about crypto white papers is that, the good ones at least, are designed to do several things. First, they want to promote the project, sell the idea. Second, they tell you what they aim to accomplish, the mission. Third, they need to establish why their project is needed, and oftentimes they'll write an abstract, which is a good summary of this. Fourth, they'll include the roadmap, which is a timeline of milestones they want to reach and when. Not all projects will include this in the white paper, and those that do are sometimes scant of details, but a good roadmap should tell you where they've been and where they want to go. Fifth, they give you their methodology, what methods for meeting their goals they aim to use. And finally, they should also tell you how they'll distribute the tokens that are created. Learning about these aspects of a crypto project will help you better understand all that goes into creating new cryptocurrencies. White papers are great tools for beginners to be exposed to a higher level crypto vocabulary. More often than not, you'll come across words that'll make you feel like you're missing something, and that's when Google is your best friend. Don't be afraid to look up words you don't know, and don't be afraid to learn something new. Sure, it can be tedious and overwhelming, but if you're interested in deepening your knowledge of this space, white papers are a good source and there's plenty of good ones out there for you to explore. After you've read a few of them, you'll begin to develop a better sense of what makes a good white paper, which is also an indication of the quality of the project itself. You'll notice things like what kind of info they're leaving out, which is a very good skill you need to hone if you want to be good at fundamental analysis. One of the most important things is you'll notice if their project has a legitimate use case, because it's all well and good for them to claim to have solved the world's problems or disrupt billion-dollar companies, but if the only way they get there is to rely on the network effect, basically they're only successful if a bunch of people use their product, then you should be skeptical. You'll also notice the type of philosophies that are behind the project. Slowly but surely, you'll begin honing your skills and developing more confidence in your knowledge of the space. One of the other benefits of reading the white paper is that it forces you to critically evaluate the website. This is the first pass of your sniff test, and you can tell a lot from just the website whether it's a project worth your time and money. If it uses terms like Web 4.0 or nonsensical buzzwords, if it's unprofessional or has an anonymous team, stay away. If they don't include a roadmap in the white paper, they'll likely have it on the front page here. Through a combination of the website and the white paper, you should fully understand how this crypto functions and how it's trying to create value. If there's no use case or the use case does not require or benefit from a blockchain, move on. Look for red flags like massive amounts of founders coins, the coins that the founders take themselves, or vague definitions of who would use the coin. Again, look for anonymous teams or promises of large payouts or guaranteed payouts, etc. As best as possible, you should begin to understand what is your impression. You need to answer a very simple question I've termed the grandma test. Based on the language of the white paper, you should be comfortable giving this project money, your grandmother's money, or someone from your family. Would you be comfortable giving the project, this team, their money? Now, crypto is speculative and risky, but this isn't about that. I'm saying, would you be comfortable giving the team behind this project someone else's money based on the language of the white paper? Do they come off as passionate, educated people looking to make the world a better place? Or do they come off as very scammy, looking to make a quick buck, trying to take advantage of the blockchain movement? Likely a project that is looking at more for themselves than the greater good. As you begin to read through white papers, you should start to get a pretty good sense of what companies you'd be comfortable investing grandma's money with. In addition to your own impression, you should begin to have a pretty good sense of the validity of the project. For example, there's been a lot of times where I'd hear about a coin through people just absolutely hyping up a project in their evaluations. The next top 10 coin, they'd say. This one is a winner for sure, they continued. Based on their glowing recommendations, I decided to check it out. I look at the site and white paper, and it's a mess. Lots of big words are being thrown around, but there's not a lot in terms of substance behind them. A white paper focuses more on saying things like changing the world and going into the full history of Satoshi creating Bitcoin, rather than explaining what the finer details are of the project, how they aim to remain solvent, and why they need to exist as a blockchain solution in the first place. One other thing to know about crypto white papers is that the projects might have two of them. One is the full technical document that will describe the technical details of the project, while another will be labeled as the short white paper, or some variation of that. That short version is meant to give you the most insight into the project in the shortest amount of time, sort of like a brochure. Now, the challenge is making sure that what they're claiming in the brochure is backed up by what they're explaining in their technical document. Some sneaky projects will use this strategy because they know most people will gravitate towards the shorter, friendlier document and will completely skip the technical document. But that's a grave error. You might walk away with a very positive view of the project, but that might be a false sense of understanding because their technical document might be lacking and they might not have any sense of how to accomplish what they promised in their short white paper. One big piece you should evaluate in a white paper is the ICO conditions, if the project decided to bootstrap support for their project using an ICO. Most commonly, the white paper will outline the token distribution, otherwise known as the crowd sale. Now, there's usually nothing too controversial about the conditions. What we're basically just looking for is how the project is split up, the token distribution of the total supply that we talked about in the coin supply appraisal. As a reminder, the amount allocated to the public is known as the circulating supply. If that amount is seemingly unfair, then that's a red flag to me. For example, if the founders' coins are 70% of the total supply, and the amount allocated to the public is only 10%, that's indicative of a very greedy team, and that's a major red flag. Now, I've never seen anything that egregious, but it's meant to drive home the point. The takeaway here is that you just want to be sure that you feel that the way they split up the pie is fair. Now, when looking at the details of a white paper, we want to make sure that they're actually using the benefits of a blockchain powering most cryptocurrencies. If we don't see that, that's another big red flag, because it likely means they're just using buzzwords and hype to get people to invest in a project that doesn't need to be listed in this space to begin with. As a quick reminder, some of the benefits of a blockchain include decentralization, meaning no need for a third party to agree or validate transactions. Transparency and trust. As blockchains are shared, everyone can see what transactions occur. Another benefit is immutability. It's extremely difficult to change a transaction once it's been put onto a blockchain. We also have distributed availability. The system is spread out on thousands of nodes on a peer-to-peer network, so it's difficult to take the system down. Another great benefit of the blockchain is security. Cryptographically secured transactions provide integrity. We also have simplification and consolidation. A blockchain can serve as a shared ledger in industries where multiple entities previously kept their own data sources. We also have quicker settlement. In the financial industry, when we're dealing with a post-trade settlement, a blockchain can drastically increase the speed of verification. And the last benefit is cost. In some cases, avoiding a third-party verification would drastically reduce costs. So one point I really want to make clear is don't feel like you need to understand everything in the white paper. Some of these documents are very dense, and without a lot of exposure to computer science and mathematics, you're probably not going to be able to decipher or understand them completely. And that's okay. You don't have to. What you need to do is make a determination as to if they can back up all that technical stuff with proper planning and execution. In addition to that, make sure you understand what the project is doing. Take notes of what you believe is the most important and compelling features of this project. Write down what you think it does in 1 to 2 sentences in your research document. With a bad white paper, it's going to look like a PowerPoint presentation. It's not going to describe the mathematics. It's going to lack references, which, as you know from your education, is a bad thing. And it's going to try to cover for a lack of innovation. Now, one big caveat to this step is that you need to understand context. You can judge a cryptocurrency project based on their white paper, but because we have 10 steps in this process, it should be clear that I don't believe that the white paper is the end-all be-all of evaluating a project. Is it a great tool to have in fundamental analysis? Yes, absolutely. As I said in the last video, it's the best and most thorough method for evaluating a project. The white paper will give us the best possible look into the framework of a project, the mission, the roadmap, the technology, and the ideas behind a project. But what I have to stress is that the thing most investors are missing when they look at a white paper is that the blockchain and project under consideration will almost certainly change in the future. Why? Because technology changes. Use cases will expand. Other projects will compete for our attention. In other words, innovation happens, and there's no reason to think it won't happen to the projects that you're looking at. What you really want to think about then is how this happens for the project you're evaluating. I think it's much better to evaluate a crypto project the way you evaluate a startup. You assume the starting point is a starting point, but not an end point. I see crypto investors evaluate a white paper like a final product, and that's where they go wrong. When I look at crypto projects, I think about a different set of things. I think about where they are starting and where they're likely to be in a decade and the path to get there. And so, once I've established an understanding and researched the white paper to gain a lot of critical knowledge about what the project is, what it's doing, and how they plan to do it, I look at the white paper as a solid base or foundation, the past tense of a project. Now, I want to see where it's going, how it's making progress, how it's adapting, how it's evolving, and notice that all of these words end with ing, future tense words. And unfortunately, you can't gain that from a static document like the white paper. You need to see the path ahead for this project. And to do that, we're going to start with the people making this happen, the project team. So in our next video, we're going to look at what to look for in a project team and how to evaluate them.